Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Mover Mailbag. I hope you're having a great week. I hope you've been enjoying the content this week. Great interview with Rick, who was the chief engineer for the Air Force for a couple awesome projects like the F-22 and the C-17, and he had a lot of great stories. If you haven't seen that, check that out. It was streamed on Monday. It's kind of a long video. I'll try to clip it, but for the most part, it's just well worth sitting and listening to. Great. We've had a lot of great awesome people on the channel lately. So I'm very thankful for those people that have come on to tell their story. Also, the helicopter videos are back, helicopter flight training videos. You got to see the first lesson with Lester and his interview and telling what happened and how he hurt himself. But there will be more helo vlogs, probably not as often as we did last time. Last time I think I did Tuesdays and Thursdays. This time I'm going to stretch it out a little bit more and do one a week just so I can do other content and kind of mix it up a little bit more on the channel. But I've already done 3 lessons, and so you should see lesson 2 next week and then lesson 3. And I'm also experimenting with some different camera angles and stuff like that. So it should be really good. And then more Mover Ruins movies. I did Hot Shots almost a month ago, which means it's almost out of copyright jail, I hope. A bunch of other videos coming soon, so stick around. I hope you're enjoying it. And also, for those that asked on the update, she was just in here a minute ago, but Luna broke her foot. So, tragic accident in which she broke her foot. So she is recovering. I'm planning on, I've been neglecting the second channel, but if you haven't subscribed to the second channel, Life with Mover, go ahead and do that. I will have videos of going back. The first video with Luna won't be her breaking her foot, but I will have a later video with her and how she broke her foot. And then also some car stuff. I want to do a walk around of the ZR1. And plus, I've got a new vehicle coming in that's been ordered and should be built next week. So a lot of stuff happening. Before we begin on the Mover Mailbag, I also wanted to talk about last week's video. We talked about the meme pages and kind of some of the stuff they did and how they made a couple baseless claims, and we addressed that, and it's water under the bridge. Not long after that, their focus turned to a couple of B-2 T-38 pilots that were making videos on TikTok. And then not long after that, they went after the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. And I'm not going to say I disagree with either of those. In fact, I agree with them in principle. I disagree with the methods. So it's one thing in a roll call or a public setting with actual people to make fun of somebody for doing something stupid, but the internet's forever, and when you're calling out real people by their real names, I think that kind of crosses a line and it gets into more of a cyberbullying kind of thing. And when they're just lieutenants or very young in their career, you're kind of creating something that could be unrecoverable later in their career. So I don't agree with their methods, but I agree with what they're saying, which is that if you are aspiring to be a fighter pilot, if you are a fighter pilot in general, and this is going to be one of those do as I say, not as I do, and I've talked to that before on this channel, but I'll reiterate that. Your social media should be locked down. It should be very private. And you should not be on TikTok at all, period, dot. TikTok is selling your information to the Chinese. When you put that app on your phone, they're data mining you. And so that's going to one of the greatest threats to our national security, which is China. And as a B-2 pilot, you should know better because you're in a very sensitive program. And even though it's cool, you get likes and follows and all that stuff, you're compromising national security by doing that. The second part of that is with social media in general, you can create a reputation for yourself that people will know you, and it will prevent other opportunities down the road. And that's where I say, do as I say, not as I do. Because I know firsthand, having a YouTube channel and having written books, and I'm a reservist, so I'm not active duty. I can do this as a second job. It's not as big of a deal. However, my social media platform and profile has prevented me from getting other flying jobs that I would have liked to have had. So my advice is, if you're anywhere in the pipeline from the beginning to, hey, I just want to be a fighter pilot, to, I'm a young wingman or whatever, I would stay away from anything public. Lock it down. Make sure it's only private, that only your friends can see it, and don't post sensitive things. They weren't posting anything illegal, but it's one of those things where you're allowing the enemy to connect the dots. So you're giving TikTok access to your phone, which who knows what other data mining information they can get off of that. And that's where it's bad. It's not that, T-38 videos by themselves when you're in the back seat and somebody else is flying is inherently illegal, because it's not, but it's the total security concept. So I just warn people, it's not worth it. Focus on your job, focus on the initial stuff. Don't create a social media presence that will then limit you in your future opportunities as you grow. And that's all I'll say on that. But also, don't be a douche. Somebody screws up, praise in public, reprimand in private. There's no reason to pile on and have a whole bunch of people rolling in on this poor kid. You make a mistake, we correct it. There's just absolutely no reason to dogpile it. All right, this first email comes from Nathan. Nathan says, Mover, in response to your video from 29 Jan 2021, haters gonna hate. Keep up the good work. I appreciate your hard work in between all the stuff you do, flying, sheriffing, etc. As a guy who was born 3 months premature and has cerebral palsy, I understand being an average guy clawing my way up. I obtained a third-class special issuance medical and had to get a statement of demonstrated ability to fly with a designated pilot examiner to keep my medical. After 250 plus hours of flying fixed wing, I still love flying. I've spent most of my life making people tell me no. At 22, I started my own business selling airplanes for aircraft owners. 19 years later, my LLC is still going. I'm working on getting my FAA Part 107 license and starting a drone business. I have a 3-year-old daughter, and my goal is to take her flying one day as PIC. One of the things I've also done is worked as an airshow narrator since I was 19. I'm 40 now. I've worked alongside the Thunderbirds and Blue Angels at many shows. It's always a privilege to work with those two outstanding individuals. My dad being a U.S. Army Vietnam veteran, I understand a little bit more about the sacrifice military members and families make for our country. Funny story, I got my call sign when I was 6 years old. The contractor that was building my parents' home gave me a steel hammer. I walked around banging on stuff. I found a brand new shiny bathtub and took a swing, knocking out a nice clip in the paint. I have been Hammer from then on. Also, I'm persistent in most everything I determined to do. Having cerebral palsy, I went through a lot of CFIs who didn't understand I learned differently than other people. Flight instructor who soloed me had Asperger's. He told me, we know what you can't do, but let's see what you can do. Other than getting marriage and having my daughter, soloing was my proudest accomplishment. I love your videos. Don't ever stop. One day I want to go 1v1 with you on DCS. Blue skies. Hammer. P.S. Here's a video of my most recent flight, my favorite airplane, the Helio Courier. It's a true short takeoff and landing airplane, able to take off and land in half the length of a football field. I have over 100 hours flying it. That is awesome. Well, thank you for the kind email, Nathan. My brother actually has cerebral palsy, but unfortunately he can't do anything for himself. So I think it's awesome that you were able to overcome and achieve great things and make them tell you no. That's really awesome. It's awesome that you're flying for sure, and then to not just fly but do all this other stuff and get your drone license and be an airshow narrator. That's just absolutely amazing, and it's an inspiring story. Thank you for sharing that. As far as going 1v1 with you on DCS, you'd probably beat me. So anyway, awesome. Thanks for that email. This message is from Eric. Private pilots flying F-16s in the U.S. What are your thoughts on the following article, and is this something you would entertain doing as an extension of your flying career? And this is a common article. I'm not going to open it, but F-16 aggressor jets are headed to North America. From what I understand, there are Israeli F-16s that actually have MiG kills, which I think is pretty cool. But no, I think it's great. They're not really, I mean, yes, they're civilian, but most of them are former military, so they're not truly private pilots per se. They've all more than likely either flown the F-16 before or flown some other frontline 4th gen fighter or even 5th gen. But no, I think it's great, and yeah, I'd probably fly it. I mean, they're old F-16A models. I mean, they're not newer by any stretch of the imagination. All right, this comes from Michael. Hey, Mover, at 67 years old, I totally agree with having haters. Keep up the imperfect but great work. Just do what I do with the haters. Pray for them and their dark hearts. Glad Lester's back. I started flying at the same airport in 1977. God bless you. Keep up the good work with Folds of Honor. Hope Jesus straps into the cockpit. Hope Jesus straps into every cockpit that you enter. Blue skies and soft landings, Mike. Thanks, Mike. It's a very kind email. Okay, this comes from Gary. Dear CW Lemoyne, love your channel. I really love the flying content as I used to support F-16s at Hill Air Force Base in the 80s. Still love the Viper. I was an age on the flight line quite often, which brings me to my first comment. When you do your videos about being a pilot, could you maybe give a shout out to the people that keep the planes in the air? The old saying goes, there's no air power without ground power. Moreover, I've heard through talking with active duty age folks that they have been hurting for people since the 90s. I'm sure that probably other shops are in the same shape. With your no BS approach, maybe it would raise enlistment numbers for those skill sets as well. I was wondering if you'd done any flyovers for sporting events. If so, what rules do they specify? I would love it if they would hit the blowers just as they start to cross the stadium. I love how they sound as if they're ripping the sky apart. When I used to go to the EOR to deliver or take equipment, the sound would shake everything, even your bones. However, the loudest plane I got to watch take off was the SR-71. That was an experience. That does sound like an experience. I like your mishap videos as it gives us a look at what happened versus the rumor mill. I hate to see a plane go down, especially if the pilot didn't make it out. We had a couple at Hill while I was there, and all we heard was rumors and hearsay. We never got the report. However, they did make us isolate all the equipment used in the plane for investigation. I'm reminded of a HUD video I saw during a train class in one of the hangars. The pilot there was telling us all the steps he went through to restart after he lost engine power. Long story short, it was a foggy day, and after several attempts to restart, he was told to punch out. You can see the ejection on the HUD as the plane's shaking a little, and a few seconds later it hits the trees. If you've ever seen this video, search for it, cannot find it. Keep up the good work. Screw the haters. Tell them you have a bunch of old veterans that love your content. Tell them that if they can do better, to put up their own channel. You're a lucky man to do what you do and share it with us. Aim high, Gary. All right, to answer your questions, yes, I've done several flybys. I've led them. I've been a wingman for them. It's an old saying, the best you can do is break even, because a lot of eyes on you and you don't want to shine your ass, essentially. You don't want to do something that's going to get your wings ripped off your chest because, you know, it's high vis. So typically the rule is 300 knots and 1,000 feet above the highest obstacle. So whatever that is, you know, it's usually you end up about 1,100, 1,200 feet or whatever, because the stadium's actually got some height to it. But that's it. So yeah, we often light the blowers as we go by. Although here's the problem with lighting the blowers. And if you watched the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500 flyby a couple years ago on TV, you'll see it. The problem with lighting the afterburner is not everyone's afterburner lights at the same time. So it can really make a formation look terrible if you light the blower just as you're crossing that point, and you know, one's burner lights, three's burner lights, four doesn't immediately, because it takes a couple seconds. You know, two's doesn't light, and you can end up looking just awful. So sometimes what we'll do is, as we get closer, we'll stage the blower with the boards out and the speed brakes. But usually the best way to do it is just light the blower as you pass by, because then it doesn't really, you know, the camera is looking away as you fly away, so it doesn't look as bad as if you're coming nose on and, you know, everybody's out of position because you're trying to hang on. Because especially with a 2-engine jet, I mean, a T-38, you know, your two engines may light separately, so you know, that's 8 afterburners that are lighting at different times. So it's not the best. But I've done NASCAR, I've done NFL, I've done college football, I've done for events and stuff like that. I've always enjoyed it. I think it's you know, a good way to give back, and it's good training. You know, it's about you know, working on time over target, talking to the guy on the ground, updating that. It's all fairly good. And as for seeing this SR-71, that's awesome. I'd love to have seen one in real life. I agree with you about supporting maintenance. I mean, we don't fly without good maintainers, and I always appreciated maintenance and everything they did for me. Yeah, I'll do a better job of trying to do more shout outs, and you know, we've done the maintenance memes and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, maintenance is a critical part of what we do for the mission every day. And for your last point, I have not seen a video of ejecting before you hit the trees. I've seen some flame out videos, but I've never seen the video you're talking about. But thanks for the email, Gary. Really appreciate the support. Okay, this question is from William. Question for the mailbag. I was wondering, how much extra training did you have to do to become an airline pilot? Did you have to start the training from scratch? By the way, I love your content. Keep up the good work. No, I did the same training that the people coming from the regionals did. So I got hired at my airline, and then I needed to get a type rating in a 737. So they just put me in a class. I did NDOC and all that stuff. So basically the same as someone coming out of a regional. There was no difference whatsoever. I did have to go get my ATP first, which involved flying in a Duchess twin engine light twin to go get my FAA check ride for the ATP. But after that, it's pretty much the same. Well, that's the same check ride as anybody takes. And then, 737 type rating was just part of airline training. So no extra training at all. Just kind of one for one. All right, this comes from Ed. And Ed says, tankers, heavies to fighters. Hi Mover, been a fan of your channel for the last year and a half. I'm an Army Reserve captain flying C-12s and a captain for a regional airline. I stumbled upon your channel when I began exploring the possibility of switching branches, and your make them tell you no philosophy led me to success. I was told it was nearly impossible to pull off and even laughed at by one of my platoon leaders, and yet I was able to land a pilot slot with an awesome tanker squadron. I have to thank you for the inspiration for what you do. I wish when I was a kid in high school you had been around answering these questions and sharing the best kept secret in military aviation, which is Guard Reserve flying. It's true. On to my question. I'm still in the process of getting in the Air Force and learning the way around. I've heard of plenty of fighter guys transition into heavies later in their career. Years down the road, would it be feasible for a tanker pilot to transition to fighters? Would the UPT age limit affect me if I had to go through T-38s? I know this is worrying about things way down the road, but I can't shake the curiosity. Thank you for your time. Keep up the great work, Ed. Short answer, it's unlikely. It is possible. There was a guy in my squadron at the Makos who was a tanker guy that went through. The problem is when you go through heavies, usually you track T1s. And once you track T1s, it kind of closes the door for fighters because you have to go through T-38s. If you were to transition, what I've seen or heard of people who have transitioned, who have flown the T1, they send them to IFF, Introduction to Fighter Fundamentals. They get through that, so they do a quick, short qualification course on T-38 at Randolph. So they'll just learn the basic systems of the T-38 just to kind of get up to speed. It's only like 6 to 9 hours. It's a very short program. Then they throw them in the IFF. Used to be a very low success rate because it's just such a different mentality that it's very hard to go from a crew aircraft to suddenly your single seat mentality, and you just got a couple rides in the T-38, now you're doing IFF and all the pressures of IFF. People have succeeded though, and it has happened. So yes, it's possible. I'm going to say it's unlikely. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying it's unlikely because you're going to have to compete against so many other qualified applicants who are younger. Because realize, you're a captain now, you're talking major level. The older, even me as a qualified 11F, so fighter pilot, being out of a 4th gen fighter for as long as I have, it is very hard for me to get a job as my squadron is closing right now because I'm fighting against, or I'm competing against all these qualified applicants who are coming off active duty, who are current and in an aircraft. So you would be competing with much younger pilots who have been fighter pilots their entire career. So they would have to have a very compelling reason to hire you. Where I've seen it happen, especially at places that have low manning, like Fresno at F-15s, where they have trouble getting people in these positions, that's kind of where it is most likely. But it's just an unlikely scenario in general. Not impossible, but early on, it's much more likely than later on. So the earlier you can do it, the better off, but then you're going to basically burn the bridge for your unit. My advice is to love the one you're with. Go to your tanker squadron, be the best pilot you can be, and just enjoy, flying in the Air Force and be the best tanker pilot, because there's nothing wrong with being a tanker pilot. Nobody kicks ass without tanker gas. So that will do it for this episode of the Mover Mailbag. If you want to send me something that's read on the channel, movermailbag@cwlemoyne.com, or if you want to email me directly, cwlemoyne@cwlemoyne.com, or if you want to mail me something, I haven't checked the P.O. box lately, but P.O. Box 8594, Mandeville, Louisiana 70470. All I ask is that you please email me before you send me something, or right around when it's going to show up, so that I know to go check it, because I hate the post office. I really hate going there. God. Anyway, like I said on the TikTok thing, just be careful with social media. I recommend not having TikTok at all. Even if you're going to watch it, it's a data mining app for the Chinese. I mean, you're basically, as a military member, you're giving them access to all your private data. That's true for everything, but TikTok specifically, with the Chinese influence, I definitely would just stay away. And then just in general, be careful. I mean, it has inhibited my ability to get other opportunities, and I don't want to see that happening to someone else as they're just starting out. So learn from me. All right. Well, I hope you guys have a great weekend. Hope you enjoy. Interview on Monday is going to be with an Apache pilot. So I'm really excited about that. He flew Kiowas and Apache. So it should be an awesome interview, and I can't wait. Live at 8 o'clock Eastern Time on Mondays with Mover. So hope you guys enjoy it. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.